Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Multifamily Hangout. I'm Adrian Daniela, your host. I want to start by thanking our sponsors for making this broadcast possible. Our sponsors are Kairos and GPS Roof Leak Repair. With this being said, I want to pass it on to my co-host today, Chris Moreno. Take it away, sir.
Awesome. Thank you, Adrian. And I am really excited to be able to welcome one of our local Atlanteans here in Georgia. And she is an expert in the multifamily property management space. Recently, she was the executive managing director at Rangewater Residential, overseeing over 100,000 multifamily units across 15 states. She has over 20 years of experience in the multifamily community. Multiple leadership capacities, and really a global expertise in the multifamily world. Throughout her career, which is a pretty wild number, she's overseen over 300,000 units. And just across the board, she's a great mentor, operational expertise, and she's just an all-around great person who really pays it forward to others. And she's taken the time, even over the years, to help me and give me feedback. So I'm really excited to welcome Sherry Freitas. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys today.
Yeah, we'll love it. And I'm excited to hear some of your stories and some of the secrets and things you're working on. Maybe if you can start with, a little bit about how you fell into multifamily real estate, and also just maybe a little bit about your story in your own words.
Well, I don't think anybody ever intends to get in this business. Maybe Adrian, I read your story, so I think you set out to do this. Well, I went to look for an apartment with my roommate and ended up kind of being interviewed in the living room, and my roommate at the same time was interviewed, and we both ended up working for the same company in Washington, D.C. I was leasing apartments. She was an accountant. And so that was kind of the beginning of it all. And I kind of got the bug. There was one time in my career that I actually thought about getting out of it, and that didn't last very long because it's just something that gets in your blood. And so, I've kind of worked my way through the business. I've done a little bit of everything and had the opportunity to, be on site for many years, move into a regional role, move into asset management for a while. I've helped start management companies in the past, and, third-party management, that was a new thing for me when I joined Greystar. So I learned a lot about that. And then, had the opportunity to work on the Greystar's global team, which was really fun and a great opportunity to learn something new. And then most recently at Rangewater, running their property management group. So it's been a wonderful career, that's for sure. Who would have thought that, and you said 20 years, it's been 35 years this year that I've been doing this. And I never thought that I'd still be doing it or be in the spot that I'm in today. So it's been very exciting. It's been very good to me and my family.
Sherry, I want to go back a little bit to your time with Greystar and managing real estate at a global level. I know that, just from living in Europe, right, being born out there, that property management, like it's done in the United States, it's like different than pretty much anywhere across the globe, anywhere else. And I want you to share with us, what are some differences in like other parts of the world, how property management is done and how multifamily is, because I know that it's not very common out there to have like buildings and properties built with destination exclusively for rental. So what are some major differences between US and other markets that you've been in charge of?
Yeah, that's really a great question. I will tell you that, the first thing is you hit it on the head. We call it purpose-built rental housing. So, and we just call it multifamily in the US, but, historically outside the US, it was all kind of condo buildings. So each apartment was owned by somebody and they rented it to, someone. And what's really interesting is, there's no fair housing. So you pick who you want to live in your home or your condo. So that was probably the first thing. You know, when I think back to a lot of the differences, obviously, you know, Germany was a place that was very interesting because they rented apartments with no kitchens, and you brought your own kitchen when you moved in, which was really kind of interesting. I remember we were working on a property there, and we provided kitchens. And so when they came in, they were like, oh, so we get this too? And we're like, yeah, this is part of it. So so we really had to educate the population of each of those countries to what purpose-built rental housing was, and the fact that when you had something break in your apartment, we were going to come and fix it, and it wasn't going to take 6 months to fix it. You know, we were going to have amenities, and you were going to get to use them, and there was no extra charge. And so there was a lot of that. You know, the hard part was that we didn't have anybody that, you know, a talent pool that we could pull from that had any experience in the business. And so we really had to go to hospitality and really educate our team members on what they were supposed to do, and the customer service that goes with it. You know, I can remember a story where they told me that when, you know, a single owner would go to rent their place, they would post something on, you know, the internet and say, hey, I've got a, you know, 2-bedroom apartment. It's, I'm going to show it at 5 o'clock on Thursday if you want to come and look at it. And droves of people would go, and the owner would stand to the side and watch everybody go through and kind of pick who he or she wanted to live there. So, yeah, it was pretty interesting. I can also tell you that when I was in China, they wouldn't show me an apartment because they were like, we don't want expats because we're afraid you're going to pack up and move back to the US or the UK and not be responsible for our rent. So, yeah, it was an experience, and we really learned a lot as we went. You know, culturally, everything was different in each country. And so we had to be very adaptive in how we did that. And then the regulations were different too. Taxation, you know, how we could build out rent. I mean, in the Netherlands, it's all, you know, the rent structure is built on a point scale. So there's just so many different nuances, but wow, what a great, exciting time of my career to be able to learn and be a part of that. So it was a lot of fun, very exciting.
I like to go with a follow-up question on this because I'm actually fascinated about how the property management model that we have here in United States is so efficient compared to what I know, right? And you're basically confirming what my thoughts were. What are the opportunities for us as an industry, US, to export this model all over the world and actually, you know, make an impact and also, you know, be successful as businesses? Because, you know, at the end of the day, this is what it's all about, you know, making money for the investors, for the owners. What are the opportunities that you see in the future, like past 2024 at a worldwide level?
Well, you know, one of the challenges was that we really didn't have a vendor partners like we do in the US, this like wide plethora. I mean, I can pick up the phone and call, you know, a whole lot of different vendors, and they know exactly what I'm talking about and what I need from them. And that didn't exist. And so we really had to work with teams, you know, especially when you're talking about, you know, turnkey, those kind of things that you need every single day, it's really difficult. So that was one big thing. You know, I think the other is that, you know, when you're building an industry outside the US, that there's no, I call it baggage. So like the people we were hiring and working with saw everything from this great fresh perspective. And there were no like, oh, we've always done it this way. And so that really was exciting because we could, you know, we were getting all kinds of really great ideas from everybody about how to market our business. You know, China, we were marketing through WeChat. There was no ILSs. And so, you know, we just had to adapt to what we were presented. And that really was it was a challenge, but it was also fun to see us actually become successful in doing those things, right? And so, I think the level of customer service that we have in the US is also, I say we spoil our residents in a lot of cases, because we want to be there for everything. The expectations from our residents outside the US was so much less than it is here. And they were actually shocked that we were going to do these things for them, and that we were going to have somebody in the office, 7 days a week. So it was, I think there's a lot of things we can learn from how those teams have adapted, but there's also things from a customer relationship, from renewals and how we do certain things. There's a lot of overlap that we just need to have a lot of conversations around so that we can make sure we're taking advantage of all those new ideas.
You've as you mentioned, like there's a lot of similarities between companies, some of the similarities abroad and very differently culturally. Are there any things that like stand out to you? You've been on the asset side, you've been on the property management side. Like, if you could share a little bit, I think people are curious. People who work on the property management side, curious about the asset side and what you like about that. So I'd love to hear like maybe some things that you love about, or you really enjoyed about the asset side, and the things you enjoyed about the property management side. And do you have that yearning to get back to the asset side, or do you prefer the property management?
So when I was on the global team, I was kind of an influencer. So I didn't have this team that directly reported to me. And quite frankly, that's one of the main reasons that I joined Rangewater, was it gave me the opportunity to have my own team and be able to, make a difference and make things, just be responsible for that team and support them. I like to see light bulbs go off, and I like to see people learn and grow. And I felt like that would give me the opportunity to really own something long term. And that's really why I made the change. So, I really enjoy the people side of our business the most, because, I worked for a long time to support myself and to raise my children and all of those things. And as I've gotten older, the things that make my heart flutter are, seeing your teams come together and accomplish something or overcome a problem and see the results and, exceed your expectations. Those are the things that really kind of get exciting. So, asset management, you're kind of working to get something done through a management company, which is, it was fun too, because you got to work with those teams, but you had less ability to actually execute when you were working through a third party. Now, a lot of them were really, really successful. It's just that, somebody who comes from my side, who's been in the operations side for a long time, you want to get in there and get your hands dirty. And so that's kind of where I've always kind of tended to go back to. So the operations side, being, fully invested in working on trying to make a difference through the people, that's the best part of it. So.
Sherry, amazing career, outstanding, 30 plus years. What are some best lessons that you've learned throughout your career that you would share with us, you'd like to share with us today?
Wow, I've learned a lot of things because I've made mistakes. So I've been accused of being somebody who likes to make decisions. And so the older I've gotten, I like to before I make a decision, I like to make sure that I'm pulling as much information as I possibly can and getting people, instead of me making the decision, it's really getting people to bring the information and help them make the decision, right? Especially as you grow as a leader. So I would say that's one thing. The other thing I would say is that don't forget where you came from. I always said that I didn't want to forget what it felt like, because you work really hard when you're on site. And there's so many different things that you're responsible for and you're expected to know and be really good at. And it's really hard to do all of those things. And so, you know, I've always wanted to make the lives of the people who are our bread and butter, which make our money for our companies, which is the on-site teams, make their lives easier. Find the ways and the efficiencies that will help them. Don't just throw them things and not, you know, fully research them. Make sure they work and make sure that they are going to help them and not be more burdensome to them. You know, and then don't ask them to do things that you wouldn't do. You know, it's funny, I still love to walk sites, and it's funny, you know, the higher you move into up the ranks, you get in that situation where you go on site and everybody's panicked because you're setting foot on their property. And I never wanted anybody to feel like it's any other day. And if I see trash on a property, I'm going to pick it up. And it sends your managers and your service managers into a tizzy because they're like, oh my gosh, she's picking up trash. And I was like, it's just part of the job. It's just what we do. And so I think that's probably a big one, is never forget where you came from and always do what you can to help those folks. And then, you know, don't hoard knowledge. Be transparent, because I can tell you that you only get better when people around you know exactly what is going on and what you're doing and what you're working for. There's no secrets in property management. Let's just be transparent, and let's let everybody know what we're trying to accomplish, because then they can help get on board to get there. So I don't know if those are all lessons learned, but those are certainly things that I try to keep in the back of my head all the time, because it's been a long 35 years, but you know what? I wouldn't do anything else.
What, you know, as you were talking about, you know, not overwhelming the teams on site. You've been there, you understand it. You know, you, as you said, property walks. I'm actually going to be doing a property walk next week. I'm excited about, for a friend who is in operations, and he's like, hey, I want you to check out one of these properties in our market. I'm curious to know, like, what are the trends maybe you're most excited about that you're currently seeing in multifamily, and maybe even specifically in like age restricted developments. You know, I've actually been checking some of those out for my family members, and I would love to get your thoughts on, you know, trends you're excited about.
You know, I think the most exciting thing for me right now is that we've got a lot of technology coming our way, and it's bringing a lot of data to us. And I always think that the more data we have, the better. However, we need to have that data brought to us in a way that's digestible, which means that instead of just getting a report, we should get a report that says, hey, look, this looks funny over here, so we need to take a hard look at this. Or maybe it's predictive and says, this is not headed in the right direction. Maybe we need to increase our advertising spend or decrease our advertising spend. Like, how are we going to use that data? So I think I'm really excited about where that's going and how AI will be a big part of that. I think the other thing is, you know, I call it specialization. A lot of people call it centralization. I think the more that we can get technology around that to support that business, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. The site teams have a rough job. So if we can take some of these mundane or repetitive tasks away from them so that they can focus on taking care of residents and doing the things that are really going to drive value to the bottom line, then that gives them, you know, that technology will help us in that. You know, and I think technology overall, you know, when you talk about age restricted, you know, our boomers are aging, and guess what? Our boomers have iPads and you know, and cell phones and or smartphones, and they've got an Alexa that they're talking to and ordering their groceries. So we have to remember that we are dealing with a lot of different people when we're doing age restricted. You've got those people who have really embraced technology and how the world has come, and then those that haven't. You know, my mom still calls me and asks me to kind of help her with with FaceTime and stuff, so, but there's a lot of people out there that are really savvy about it. So we have to adapt. And I think that's similar to everything that we're doing in our business, age restricted or not. People want us to do business with them the way they want us to do business with them, not the way we want to do business with them. And so we have to be really adaptive to all of that. And part of that is just making sure we have the right people on site that can be responsive to that. And, that our technology is working and it's easy. You can buy a car with a couple clicks today. You can't do that with an apartment. And my son just rented an apartment and he had to initial like 60 pages before when he was signing his lease document. And that's not fun. He's like, Mom, I had to rest. So, we've got to find ways to be better. And that's all across every aspect of our business. And if we're not looking at what the experience is of our renter, then we're missing the boat. So there's a lot of really great stuff going on out there with technology and with just trends. But the more that we can embrace it, I think, I hate to say this, but COVID was good for our industry in the fact that it pushed us into using more technology and being more adaptive. And so I hope that we could just continue to be that way.
I'm glad that you mentioned like how COVID pushed us industry towards adopting technology, like closing the gap between us and the rest of the world, honestly, because it wasn't necessary that, we were aligned with how the world functions in general. We tend to be slower to adopt, new stuff. Would you like to stay a little bit more on AI, artificial intelligence, and just kind of give us your thoughts on how do you think that AI is going to particularly influence property management, multifamily? There's a lot of opinions out there saying that AI is something scary, is gonna take jobs away. And do you feel that way, or do you feel that there's a different angle to AI, and how do you think it's going to impact the industry?
In my opinion, I think that it's going to help us. We have to, everybody is worried about jobs going away, but we have a shortage of people to fill our positions. And so like that to me that's where we need to find those things that will create solutions around the lack of people that we have in our industry. Again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. Being easy to do business with means being available when somebody wants you to be available, and we're not open 24/7. And so a lot of our chat bots and, the support through instant information is where we need to use our AI in a lot of cases. And then I'll go back to the predictive and, exceptions reporting. Like what looks funny? Let's teach it how to tell us when something is not, that's going against the grain of what it should look like. And maybe it should be that way, but we just need to take a look at it. Because I can print out a report or I can pull up a report and look at it, but I got to go through the whole thing in order to find that information. And so how do we use it to really give us that edge up and give us that instant kind of glance at what's going on? And so that's where I see it's going to be very exciting. I think people who worry about their job going away just need to understand that the jobs are going to change, and that's where they need to focus on where that job or that position is going and whether or not you like where it's going, and how do you get ready for that, where it's going? Because I think those are the things that, if you're just going to stay in one place, you might get left behind, and that's no fun either.
Yeah, that's definitely not a good thing to have happen to you. I completely agree with you. I think that's what I've been hearing over and over. Some people afraid of, well, is this going to replace our job? There was a post today where people were talking about one of the sessions at TAA, how they were talking about, having to hire fill-in work, and people are like, well, should we have jobs, should we not, like where does this go? There's so many opportunities, I think, to help people do the jobs that humans should do. And then I think there's things that the minutia, that, like to your point around data, so that's really insightful. I wanted to get your thoughts on this, on ESG. You've been involved significantly with ESG initiatives. Could you share a little bit about, obviously you're thinking about ESG. I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on how you've thought about it, maybe in the different orgs, but also around like how you think about it from sustainability to cost to ROI, like, and how it impacts, the properties and making a decision.
Yeah, I mean, our institutional owners have, requirements that they have to meet from an ESG perspective. And so those requirements are things that we need to start paying attention to on our sites. We're benchmarking our utilities, we are recycling, and we're getting data on that. We have social programs. We're providing information to our residents on how to be, lessen their footprint. So I think, the things I will tell you is that, as an operator, know what your certifications are in your building and work to maintain those certifications. Also, like, continue to look at ways that we can be more efficient. Some of it is that we've got a lot of people that are still paper crazy, and, just don't take the steps towards trying to be a little bit smarter about how we look at our footprint. The socialization part of it right now is really exciting because we're creating communities around this and that. So, we used to think, gosh, if we put in water savers and we put in, the programmable thermostats, we're going to drive efficiency. Their bills are going to be less. They're going to pay us more rent. Well, they're not. They're not going to pay us more for those things, but they expect it. And so we need to make sure that we're talking about it, especially to our renters, because they want to know what we're doing to try to be a part of this initiative. So, I think we'll continue to see a lot of changes in our websites and the information that we're providing for our people. We're going to be talking about more of the whys around what we do and those specific things that we're doing, so that our residents understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So I think communication is the big part of all of it. But the more and more the institutions take over and are buying multifamily, we're going to see more and more of it. It's a lot easier on the commercial side of our business because, that's just a part of a day. But we've got our residents 24 hours a day, and we've got to support them in the way they want it to run. So it means a lot of different things to a lot of people, but I think just being conscious about it and doing what we can and learning as much about it as you can. I'm certainly not an expert, but have worked with different companies to, improve GRES scores and just be a lot more intentional about how we're performing our business.
Before going to the next question, I want to give a shout out to those of you that are joining us live in the audience. Drop us a line in the comments with where are you watching us from today. And if you have any questions for Sherry, please feel free to share them, to type them in the comments. And the next question, Sherry, that I have for you is about scaling. What are some lessons that you learned? I mean, you oversaw portfolios that are huge, like, when you're talking about, tens of thousands or 100,000 apartment homes, that's incredibly large, right? And I'm sure that, throughout your career, you've been there and you didn't start at 100,000, maybe you started at 30 or 40 and it progressed to 100,000. So what are some challenges that, you saw in scaling up a business from a smaller number to a huge number? And secondly, what are some lessons that you have learned that you would like to share about scaling a business? in a short period of time, really, because when you're thinking about years is really nothing at the scale of a lifetime, 2-3 years or 5 years or 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of years has made our business grow a lot. And I think a lot of companies have gone through dramatic growth over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And when that happens, you don't always have the scaling in place to go through that. And you wake up one day and you're like, wow, how did we get this big? And we're killing people. Because typically what happens is, you've come across a problem, and so what do? You throw a person at it and get them to try to work through it, instead of really taking a step back saying, what do we need to do? What kind of processes or adjustments do we need to make in the way we do things so that we can continue to do it, but on a larger scale? I think back to one of the companies I worked for, and when I joined, we didn't have a great, well, I won't say we didn't have a great, we had a great transition group, but the processes around the transitions were not supporting the business so that we could do a lot of transitions at one time. And so we went back and took a hard look at what we were doing, and we automated a lot of those things. And it just gave them the ability to, number one, hold people accountable to what things they needed to accomplish, but also kept the communication and, the organization all together so that we didn't miss things as we were transitioning. So, I think you've got to put people in place in order to take a hard look at how you can scale or where you need to scale. And the first thing you need to do is really listen to where your pain points are, because they're going to be really obvious. Like, where are you seeing turnover in your organization because you're burning people out? Where are you seeing friction points or things get missed? And really working through how you can resolve those things. A lot of times we got committees together and just put them together and really had a lot of conversations around what is the answer to making this more efficient. I will also say there's a lot of times that we think that we can keep doing what we're doing with the people that we have. And you need to take a really hard look at some of the teams that you have to make sure you've got the right people in the right seats. Make sure that they have the capability of that growth. Some of them want to grow at that rapid pace. Some of them don't. And so really understanding the teams that you have and where you're missing the mark. So getting the people in there that are supportive, and I'm going to throw that word change in there. That makes people really nervous. And so you've got to make sure that any transition plans or process change you're making, that you get everybody involved in it. You get them to understand why you're making those changes and not just to change for the sake of it, and how you're trying to help them and get them involved in it, because you need those champions along the way to make sure that, everybody gets on board. It's a lot smoother. But I will tell you, when I worked for one company, we did an analysis at one point about a lot of the programs we had implemented. And we found out that one of the main reasons programs didn't work is because of the implementation. We didn't do a good job. We threw it out there and we were like, oh, we're done now. And there's nothing else to do. And the problem was we didn't have a long-term owner that was going to own it long-term for every bit that's going on with it. But we also needed to make sure that we were continuing to train it and nurture it and adjust it. So yeah, scaling is hard, but it's really getting a plan in place for what you think needs to accomplish and really taking a hard look at all the steps that you need to accomplish to get it. I really enjoy writing strategic plans and trying to figure out what are the things that are missing or that are the pain points. But I can come up with my list, but the lesson I learned was make sure that everyone else has a say in that list, because my priorities may not be theirs. And let's make sure we're getting the biggest priorities taken care of first. there's some low hanging fruit out there that are always easy wins, but the big ones are the ones that have the most impact. And, as you grow your business, you have to make sure that you're investing in the infrastructure to support that business. So I think, taking a hard look at accounting and IT and all of those things that support every part of the business, it's important, because you can't forget any of them, because every bit of scaling impacts everyone.
There was funny enough, a big discussion I remember years ago where talking with architects around the development or looking at technology, as you're talking about, around like drones landing on the rooftops and then delivering anything a resident would need, automated robots going through, even drones flying through the buildings and having automated screens that might pop up. I'm curious to get your thoughts on you see the things that actually have happened, and maybe some of these things are being implemented. I saw robots of Invesco actually here in Atlanta roaming around their locations and welcoming you in the building. But I'm curious, like, thinking 5-10 years out, like, what do you think is going to be actually are we going to see the Jetsons, or is it going to be like, just look little steps at a time? What do you think is like the biggest exciting thing that you think will actually be implemented?
That's a great question, but 5 years is not a lot of time when it comes to technology. So, when I think about electric cars and electric car chargers, we're still having a lot of conversations around just that. And so I think that the adoption isn't always as quick as we think it is. But I will tell you, I was visiting my hometown, and which is in Harrisonburg, Virginia, and James Madison University has the robots that deliver food to the dorms, which is like, I was like, gosh, I would never have left if I would have had that service when I was in college. But so I think there's a lot of things that we can think about, but I think that technology part of it is where we will find the efficiencies. And so, I really think that technology focused on that specialization or centralization is going to be important, because again, our workforce is slim, and we need to make sure that we're supporting them and giving them the tools so that they can be successful. So how do we get that information or get those tools to them? I don't know that we're going to have robots touring our prospects. I just can't imagine that, but we have self-guided tours. And again, I'll go back to, how do people want to do business with us? So, my crystal ball is slow on batteries or something right now, but, I just hope that we will continue to see people embrace options that come our way and not just say no because it's foreign and doesn't sound like work today. So, smart home technology, like, I don't know where that's going to go. I think that is, again, used differently by each person. So I don't know. That's a stumper of a question, because I'm not really sure that I'm the expert on where we're going, but I just hope that we continue to see our business. I think we should watch the businesses that we mimic or that we're close to, like hospitality. We should see what they're doing and make sure that we're looking outside of our industry to see the things that should be interesting to us.
I totally agree with that. I had met yesterday with a CEO here in Atlanta, and I think they own like 10 hotels. They have, about 5,000 units, and they have an amazing hotel they're renovating here in downtown Atlanta, which is amazing. And to your point, I'm hearing that over and over from Waterton, Bizzuto, a lot of these groups that own hotels and have the hospitality, because you can, take that over to multifamily. I think you're right, though. I think you hit on around, I think you didn't get stumped. You hit on the head with, the robots. What level of robots? What is the privacy that people want? But I think you're spot on, especially in the food delivery. You're really seeing technology take flight also with the automated cars. Have you ridden, by the way? I know you talked about seeing the food delivery. Have you ridden in an automated car yet? Have you or Adrian been able to ride in one of those self-driving cars?
No.
I haven't either, but I've heard about it. So maybe that's the future is if we can cut down, Sherry, would that be helpful? If we could cut down the parking spots, have more living spaces, have more automated cars, would that increase profitability,
Yeah. I mean, who knows? But because, we build a lot of properties in town these days, and the fact that we have limited land to build parking, and parking structures are expensive to build. So I think we need to continue to find ways public transportation, that's another thing. We need to figure out how to get that, make that improved in our cities.
You mentioned public transportation, so I can't help but asking you, how does our infrastructure compares with other parts of the world? How accessible are multifamily properties in other parts of the world? Like, China and Europe, Netherlands, like, all the countries that you mentioned that you oversaw portfolios and real estate in?
I think public transportation is better outside the U.S. I think we have some cities that do it better than others. But we build around properties that have access to trains, and, I think about, London and how easy it is to get around on the tube. And so it's just, I think that our public transportation in a lot of places is insufficient for what it could be. It's upsetting because, a lot of those places, it's just expected and accepted as part of it. No, they would prefer not to drive a car. And we all tend to jump in our cars first before we do anything else, because it's a lot easier to get where we want to go. So I would say that we have some work to do on our side.
Yeah. And thinking about that, with automating more, whether self-driving, and creating more efficiencies, how were you thinking about, centralization of multifamily? Is that something that was a big, difference? Like I've heard some teams talking about removing certain roles from properties and moving them to a centralized location. And there we go. We have Ed sharing right now. In your opinion, is centralization here to stay or just a fad? So everyone wants to know like what your thoughts are on centralization.
Well, I don't think it's bad, but I think it means something different to everyone. So, there's a lot of talk around centralizing the assistant manager role, which is, collections and payables and those kind of things. And I think that's smart, because those are tedious type roles. And, and especially if you're interrupted when you're doing those things because a resident comes in, it could create mistakes. And so by taking those roles that are kind of, a lot of other industries do it centralized. I call it specialized, just because it just makes sense to have somebody on your team that is really good at doing that task to continue to do it. Now we have to make sure that we compensate them the way they should be compensated and bonus them based on how they're performing, or maybe the goals you set for them, the KPIs. But I think that, that's the first way. But think about centralization or specialization in turnkey. If you've got a team on your sites that just turn apartments, now we've got a punch guy probably, but what if we had a team that just painted, cleaned, and punched apartments? They would be so good at it, and they would have a system, they would know your property, and it would be done faster. You could probably schedule it even better because you're relying on your own people to get things done when you need them done. Or maybe it's, I know we third party a lot of that out, but I think that really looking at where's the need. I've talked to, I think Melissa White was on your podcast a while back, and one of the things I learned from her was, that they took a hard look at their on-call maintenance teams, and what they realized was that, very rarely did you have emergency calls at the same time at 5 properties. And so how do you centralize that call schedule? so that you've got one person who's pulling call maybe once every 5 weeks versus once every other week. And how do we get that to work? So I think those are some things that we really could learn from, because on call, and Adrian, you can probably help me with this one. That's a hard thing when you have to be expected to be available 24 hours a day for however long, and you never know. You're just sitting around waiting for your phone to go off to tell you that there's a flood or something going on. So I think that a lot of the tasks that do, call centers for leasing, like if you've got somebody who really is great at answering questions and following up or calling on your renewals, all of those things, in my opinion, could be centralized. Does that mean that we get rid of positions? No, we just repurpose people into positions. And it also means that you've got people who love to take care of residents that are still on site taking care of residents. They're not doing the stuff that they really don't love to do, because we are really great at handing a salesperson a file and say, hey, we need you to go fill out some paperwork. And that's the cringe that they give you. That's the last thing they want to do is paperwork when they can be out selling. And so how do we get people to do the things that they're really good at? And as Dr. Debbie Phillips says, let's get them to their genius zone, right? Like, let's get them focused on the things that they love. And again, I'll reference COVID. People want hybrid roles. And what a better way to do that than having those roles that they can work from home or, in a different location. So I think we've got to be flexible to it. And I think that every company is going to decide what it means to them. I don't think there's no way to dictate it, but I think companies should be doing what works best for them.
I want to answer your question first, Sherry. I think on call was the hardest thing to manage mentally, because it wasn't necessary like all day long and like an everyday thing, but just knowing that you got home and you're really tied to your phone, it's at your hip, it's everywhere you go, even like taking a shower, you got to take the phone with you so you could hear it ringing, so you could jump on it because it could be something catastrophic. That thought, it's very hard to bear. And it wasn't just my personal experience, but if you were to survey like maintenance employees in multifamily, they will tell you that that's the thing that they hate the most for that particular reason, because you feel like you're mentally a prisoner to this phone, to this device that's going to like go off and announce a threat, like just something that happened that you got to run and fix. So it's been hard.
I think our managers are like that too, because I can remember getting the calls at 2:00 in the morning that the fire alarms were going off, or that on a Saturday afternoon and a resident wanted to talk to me. So I think that there's a lot of those roles, but like if we've got a call center that can answer and take care of things, we all get really busy and tied up, and it's really hard to give people your undivided attention with what they deserve if you've got 15 different things going on at one time. So I think that centralization, or as I call it, specialization, is a really good answer to try to find a way to make sure that we're taking care of our customers really, really well, because I think that drives value, because our customers will stay longer with us if they feel like we have valued them, we've taken care of their issues, we're doing business. If they want to call us or if they want to show up, either way, we can take care of it and get their issue resolved the way they want it.
It's definitely a very interesting way to look at things, and I'm hoping that our industry will take advantage of those opportunities, and we'll see how things will change. Chris.
Yeah, I was going to ask Sherry too. You talked also, obviously the importance of culture, the importance of leadership, and one of the areas that I think, and I look at you and think about the amount of time you spent helping and nurturing others in their careers, and you've probably been mentored as well by others. I'd love you to just kind of share maybe a little bit about how important having a mentor in a career is. Maybe someone who's made a big impact on you, or maybe a couple mentors that you could share that maybe impacted you throughout your career.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some amazing people that I've worked with. I think when I think back to probably one of the people that really worked on my leadership style and grew me at a time when I really needed a lot of growth, and that would be Greg Lozenak, who I worked with for many, many years at ING Clarion and even a bit at Waterton. And I had a counterpart there that ran the West Coast when I ran the East Coast, Lisa Newton, and we were completely opposite. And yet he managed or led us in the way that was best for us and grew both of us at the same time, which was really exciting. He always took the time to make sure that he explained things and worked with me. And, I knew he was going to call me out if I screwed something up, which I did, but he at least took the time to make sure that I knew what my alternatives were for the next time, so that maybe I didn't screw up twice the same way. I think back to my time at Graystar when I worked for Jackie Rohn, and she really taught me that I needed to have a voice, that I had a lot of really great things in my head, and that I needed to make sure that people heard them, because I was a little timid, because, I was in some rooms that had some pretty powerful people, and, she's like, you have a voice and I want you to use it. They need to hear what you think and what you want to say. And so those are two really, really amazing people that have been in my life. And then I will also say Dr. Debbie Phillips, because a lot of people don't know this, but she taught me how to interview people back in 1996, which is crazy. So, she's been a huge support of me, and just, everything that I do, I can bounce off things off of her, and she can also call me out on things that I'm being a little stubborn about, because I might be a little stubborn at times. So I think that's the part about mentorship, is that you're really not there to teach people anything, but you're really there to be that sounding board and guide somebody and encourage them to be who they are, but in a very positive or professional way. So, I hope that I can just be that way to others along the way, that they can actually, and that's kind of where I am in my career. It's like, I want to be that person now. I want to be the one who is giving back to our wonderful industry, instead of, always taking, like I feel like I have over the years. I've had so many great people that have worked with me, and now I just want to see other people grow and love it as much as I do.
I want to go to questions from the audience. We have a very interesting question from Jason. Thank you for the question, Jason. Any words of wisdom on deciding what company to work for when deciding to make a move?
Well, that is a very fitting question, Jason, because quite frankly, for those of you that don't know, I'm in the market right now for my next new opportunity, and, fit is important. And so I think you have to make sure that you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you, that the culture, the expectations, and they may change. But you feel good about the people that you're going to work with, because that's who you spend a lot of time with. Do you feel like you can make a difference there? Do you feel like they are aligned with your core values? Because if they aren't, then it's never going to work. And you want to go someplace and be there a long time, because jumping from job to job is no fun. So I would say, do your homework. talk to people that work there. I mean, I think our industry is really great in the fact that we all share information very easily as far as like, who do you know over there? Who can you connect me with? And tell me about what the culture really is like. I think the more you can do that, shop properties, talk to the people that are on site that work for those companies, because I bet you that they can tell you a lot about what's going on. Yeah, I would just say that just do your homework and make sure that you ask all the hard questions too, especially because you only want to make that decision once.
And do we have any more, Adrian, that we want to ask before we finish up? I know we're at time.
Yeah, we could plan on having the wrap up question if you want to ask that, Chris.
Yeah, the question we like to ask is, we think about legacy. What do you want people to think about as you're passing the torch to others, and think when they think about Sherry Freitas in the multifamily world?
I think that I want them to think that I never got old. That I stayed really current with what was going on in the world, but I used my experience to make a difference in companies. I have always been somebody who really believed in driving performance and execution and accountability. And so, I've been told that, I'm tough, but I'm fair. I want to be tough and fair and somebody who helps others, because I think that's where you make the biggest difference. Is that, I've learned over the last couple of weeks as I've looked for new opportunities that this industry is so amazing and that people want to help others. And I just want to be part of that. And really just make sure that my legacy is that I've made property management better by being involved in it, whether it be some of my crazy ideas. But, I also like to help the vendor side a lot. I spend a lot of time talking because I get these crazy innovative ideas and I'm like, okay, your product does this, but if you could do this, this, and this. So I want to give back to a lot of different groups because it's been so good to me. I don't think I would have stayed in it if it wouldn't have been so such a great place to be for 35 years.
Amazing. Well, yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to spend it with us. This has been awesome, and to hear your stories, hear your experience, and we got to do a second one in the future for sure. But I'll hand it to Adrian. Thank you. We'll see you soon, I know. But Adrian, any last parting words?
Sherry, we're very grateful to have you here hanging out with us today. I want to thank you. As Chris said, you always, welcome to come back. We still have several questions that we wish we would have asked, but, obviously time is of an essence. So we ran out of time. I also wanted to thank our sponsors from Kairos and GPS Roof Leak Repair for making this broadcast possible. And I want to thank all of you in the audience for really being here with us, because, this show is not about us. This is definitely for you, and it's about you. We thank you for being present, for asking questions. We hope to see you back here next week for another amazing experience. And thank you all so much. Have an amazing afternoon.
Thank you.